What if I told you that the person who completely shattered your reality remembers every single detail of what they did to you? It is one of the most agonizing, frustrating parts of experiencing deep betrayal. You look at them and they seem totally unfazed. They aren't suffering from amnesia, they haven't blocked it out, and they aren't confused about what happened. While you are lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, replaying the exact moment your heart broke, they are sleeping peacefully. You watch them go about their day, laughing, socializing, and living life completely unbothered, and it starts to make you question your own sanity. You begin to wonder how it is humanly possible for someone to totally destroy your inner peace, walk away, and act like absolutely nothing happened. It makes you feel completely invisible, as if the pain they inflicted was just a figment of your imagination. The cold, hard truth is that they know exactly what they did. They remember every broken promise, every sharp, weaponized word, and the exact look of absolute devastation that crossed your face when they let you down. They watched you crumble under the weight of their actions in real time. But modern psychology and the timeless teachings of Carl Jung reveal that what is actually happening here is something far more sinister than simple, everyday cruelty. They aren't forgetting your pain because they genuinely can't remember it. They are actively forcing you to carry the emotional weight of it so they don't have to. By refusing to acknowledge the damage they caused, they shift the entire burden of the trauma onto your shoulders, leaving you to drown in the confusion while they walk away entirely unscathed. This brings us directly to the psychological machinery behind this behavior, which Carl Jung famously exposed when he discovered the concept of the shadow self. The shadow represents the dark, unwanted, and unacknowledged parts of our own personality, the traits we would rather pretend don't exist, like selfishness, malice, cruelty, and deceit. When someone inflicts deep harm on you and then flat out refuses to offer a genuine apology, they are engaging in a highly toxic psychological defense mechanism known as shadow projection. Instead of doing the painful internal work of facing their own capacity for bad behavior, they split that darkness off from themselves and project it entirely onto you. They make you out to be the problematic one, the difficult one, or the one who is impossible to please, effectively turning their flaws into your character defects. They actively choose to forget the reality of the situation because true remembrance would demand genuine, uncomfortable accountability. In the psychological framework of a manipulator, admitting wrongdoing isn't just an admission of a mistake, it feels like a fatal threat to their very existence. Accountability requires authentic, painful change and the dismantling of their ego, which is something most people are simply not psychologically strong enough to handle. To protect their incredibly fragile self-image, they construct a permanent, unshakable mask of innocence. They look you dead in the eye with complete conviction and say things like, "I never said that," "I don't remember it that way," or the infamous, "You're just being way too sensitive." When they say these things, they aren't just playing a superficial game or trying to trick you in the moment. It goes much deeper than standard lying. They have actually succeeded in brainwashing themselves. They have repeated their rewritten version of history so many times in their own minds that they fully believe their own delusions, all to protect their precious ego from the terrifying reality of who they actually are. When you finally gather the courage to confront them, expecting a mature conversation or at least a shred of human decency, and they respond with stone-cold silence, block your number, or completely disappear from your life, you need to understand something vital. That silence is not a passive reaction. It is not because they are overwhelmed. It is not because they are confused. And it is definitely not because they lack the words to express themselves. That silence is a highly calculated, deeply intentional weapon designed to shift the entire burden of confusion directly onto your shoulders. By choosing to say absolutely nothing, they instantly flip the power dynamic of the entire relationship. They effectively walk away from the wreckage they created and leave you standing alone in the debris, forcing you to manage the emotional fallout of their actions all by yourself. They deliberately withhold the closure you desperately need because they know that your hunger for answers gives them total and complete control over your emotional state. It is a psychological trap, and it works with terrifying precision. The moment they say nothing, your brain goes into overdrive and you start saying everything. You find yourself sending massive blocks of text, replaying old conversations in your head at all hours of the night, and meticulously over-explaining your feelings as if you just haven't found the perfect combination of words to make them understand your pain. You begin lowering your standards, rewriting your own healthy boundaries, and aggressively compromising your self-respect just to get a single-word response. In essence, you end up begging for tiny scraps of attention and basic acknowledgement from the exact person who should be on their knees begging for your forgiveness. This intentional vacuum of communication completely destabilizes your internal reality. When someone refuses to validate what happened, your mind naturally begins to play tricks on you to fill the silence. You enter a state of constant anxiety, analyzing every minor detail of the past, looking for signs of remorse that simply do not exist. This is exactly what they want, because a person who is entirely consumed by self-doubt is a person who is incredibly easy to manage and control. The silence acts as a slow-burning fog that rolls into your mind, obscuring the facts of the betrayal until you start turning the blame inward. You become your own worst enemy, internalizing their cruel treatment and twisting it until it feels like your fault. Eventually, the manipulation cuts so deep that you start asking yourself those agonizing, exhausting questions. Maybe it really wasn't that bad? Maybe I am just overreacting? Maybe I am being too dramatic and brought this on myself? If you are asking yourself those questions right now, you need to stop right there and open your eyes to the game being played. They did not do the work to heal the wound they caused, and they have absolutely no intention of repairing the bond they broke. Instead, they use the weapon of strategic silence to completely distort your perception of reality, masterfully twisting the situation until they made you question if you were even bleeding in the first place. You need to stop running yourself ragged, expecting deep emotional maturity, genuine empathy, and heartfelt remorse from someone who is completely superficial at their core. It is an exhausting cycle. You approach them assuming that because they look like an adult, act like an adult in public, and speak the language of a mature human being, they must possess the internal depth to understand the gravity of how badly they hurt you. But they don't. Carl Jung's extensive clinical work with highly difficult and manipulative patients exposed a fascinating yet deeply disturbing psychological phenomenon known as dissociative competence. This isn't just basic compartmentalization, it is a highly advanced subconscious survival mechanism. Chronic manipulators possess the terrifying ability to completely separate their harmful, abusive, or deceitful actions from their actual identity. In their minds, there is an absolute disconnect between what they do and who they are. Because of this severe psychological split, they can look at the wreckage they caused in your life and genuinely, with 100% conviction, believe that they are the actual victim in the situation. This internal disconnect allows them to literally rewrite history in real time, functioning as the ultimate fiction writers of their own lives. When a normal person does something wrong, their conscience kicks in, causing them to feel guilt, which prompts them to apologize and make things right. But when this type of person encounters a moment of accountability, their psyche cannot tolerate the discomfort of being the bad guy. To protect themselves from a total internal collapse, they immediately distort the facts. They conveniently forget their initial provocations, erase their cruelest words from their memory, and hyper-focus on your reactive anger. By the time they are done twisting the narrative in their own minds, they have masterfully cast themselves as the innocent, long-suffering hero in a story where they were actually the primary villain. If you try to bring up the hard, unvarnished facts of what actually happened, they will look at you with total bewilderment or intense rage, because your truth completely threatens the beautifully manicured delusion they have built to keep themselves feeling safe and justified. This is exactly why demanding a sincere apology or waiting for them to finally get it is an exercise in total futility. When you ask this person to look at what they did, admit they were wrong, and say a genuine, meaningful sorry, you think you are just asking for a simple mistake to be corrected. But to them, you are asking for something infinitely more terrifying. You are asking them to completely dismantle their entire ego, shatter their protective mask, and face the ugly, unprocessed darkness of their shadow self. Their entire psychological structure is built around a frantic, lifelong defense mechanism designed to avoid that exact moment of terrifying self-realization. They lack the emotional muscle, the internal courage, and the basic psychological infrastructure required to look in that mirror. They literally do not have the tools in their emotional toolkit to handle the weight of real guilt. So they instinctively reject it and throw it back in your face. At the end of the day, you have to accept a brutal but incredibly liberating reality. Their emotional range maxed out long before they ever reached true psychological maturity. They hit a developmental ceiling years ago, and they are stuck there. They can play the part of a deep, caring partner, friend, or family member when things are easy and smooth. But the absolute second that conflict arises and accountability is required, they hit that hard ceiling and completely short-circuit. They resort to deflection, denial, and victim blaming because those are the only defense mechanisms they know how to operate. You need to imprint this truth onto your heart right now. The genuine, deeply felt apology you never received and will likely never get, is not a reflection of your worth, your value, or the legitimacy of your pain. It is nothing more than a glaring, undeniable reflection of their ultimate psychological ceiling. The most liberating, life-changing truth you will ever learn on your healing journey is this: you absolutely cannot make unconscious people conscious. It is a completely impossible task. You can be the most patient, loving, understanding, and articulate person on the planet, but you cannot love someone into emotional maturity when they are fully, deeply committed to staying asleep. You have to stop treating their emotional absence as a riddle that you can solve if you just try hard enough, give them more chances, or find a better way to explain yourself. Trying to extract genuine remorse, a heartfelt apology, or basic empathy from an emotionally unavailable person is exactly like walking up to an empty well with a bucket and expecting to draw water. You can drop the bucket down 1,000 times, you can wait by the edge for years, and you can cry into the dark, but you will never get a single drop. The well isn't temporarily broken. It doesn't need to be fixed, and it isn't waiting for you to repair it. It is just completely dry. Once you truly accept this reality, you unlock a profound realization that will completely set you free. Your healing does not require their awakening. You do not need them to finally get it in order for you to move on and be happy. You do not need them to sit across from you, look you in the eyes, and validate your reality before you can close that painful chapter of your life. Waiting for them to change or admit wrongdoing is like giving the person who broke you total control over whether or not you ever get to heal. You have to completely stop explaining your pain to people who actively profit from not understanding it. They gain power, comfort, and zero accountability by pretending your pain isn't real or that you are just overreacting. The moment you stop trying to convince them of what they did, you take your power back, pull yourself out of their toxic psychological game, and choose your own peace over their stubborn delusion. The beautiful, unexpected gift hidden deep inside this brutal wound is that they have shown you exactly what you will no longer tolerate in your life moving forward. They have unwittingly handed you the ultimate blueprint for your own personal boundaries. By pushing you to your absolute breaking point and leaving you to drown in their silence and denial, they have forced you to find a strength you didn't even know you possessed. They have drawn a crystal clear line in the sand for you, showing you exactly what betrayal looks like, what manipulation feels like, and precisely what kind of treatment you will never allow near your heart ever again. This painful experience is a massive catalyst for your own growth, stripping away your naivety and forcing you to level up your emotional standards. So right now, you need to make a conscious choice to stop looking outward for closure that is never going to come from an empty well. Choose to look inside instead, focus entirely on your own recovery, and ruthlessly protect your peace of mind. Stop wasting your brilliant, valuable life force trying to drag an emotionally stagnant person up a mountain they have no desire to climb. Save your precious energy, your deep empathy, and your capacity for love for the people who actually have the internal courage, the maturity, and the self-awareness to meet you at your level. You deserve mutual respect, authentic connection, and relationships where accountability is a given, not a battlefield. If this message resonated deeply with you today, and if it helped clear away the fog of doubt and bring you back to your own truth, please subscribe to the channel right now. Share this video with a friend, a loved one, or anyone else in your life who is currently stuck in the loop of waiting for an apology they will never get, and who desperately needs to reclaim their reality, choose themselves, and walk away into true freedom today.